Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, my name's Audrey and I post acting videos. This video is pretty random and I'm not sure if anyone's gonna watch this, but I've had a few people ask me and I feel like even if it just helps one person, it's worth making. But a lot of people have asked me, how can you act with anxiety? And I've never really maybe I have talked about having anxiety, but it's not something I talk about very often. It's an important thing to remember that everyone experiences anxiety differently. So I'm not going to be speaking for everyone, I'm just going to be speaking from my personal experience and what I've observed and what helps me. But, you know, what applies to me doesn't necessarily apply to everyone with anxiety. Everyone's experiences are different, and I understand that I don't understand and have lived through everything that you guys have lived through. So I'm not at all trying to say my way is the best way, or I know what I'm talking about, or I'm definitely not speaking for everyone with anxiety. But me personally, this is what I do and what helps me. So starting off with the question, can you act with anxiety? I wholeheartedly believe you can act with anxiety 100%. I've struggled with anxiety my entire life. Ever since I was a child, ever since I can remember, I've had anxiety, and I've struggled with panic attacks, which are two different things, but I've experienced both. So I fully believe that you can act with either of those. I've had extreme anxiety as a child, and I've been acting since I was 12 and stage acting since I was 5. So the whole time I've had anxiety, I've been acting. And if I can do it, I absolutely believe that you can do it. I understand that anxiety is limiting and you do need to listen to yourself, and sometimes it is impossible to do certain things with anxiety. But I think the most important thing when you are someone that struggles with anxiety or anything with your mental health is to remember that nothing is permanent, and just because you feel a certain way for this point of time does not mean you're going to feel like that forever. There are definitely times where my anxiety has been worse and I wouldn't have been able to accomplish some of the things I've accomplished, but then there's times where it's better and I'm able to accomplish more. So I do understand if you genuinely are in a place where you can't do some of the things that acting requires, but I definitely don't think that that means forever and ever you're always going to feel and function this way. I don't think having anxiety or a panic disorder makes you any less capable of doing anything than anyone else. It's a feeling that you have and you have to learn to deal with, but I think that we're just as capable as everyone else. But having anxiety and acting is definitely not easy, and I think the most important thing is when you are someone that struggles with that is to be patient and forgiving with yourself, because you're experiencing the world differently than other people are. And like I said in the beginning of the video, just because you feel a certain way now does not mean you're always going to feel that way. And I'm not saying that your anxiety is going to go away and you're going to be healed, but I'm saying the longer you stick with acting, you're gonna notice yourself growing and doing things that you never ever thought you were able to do. So be patient and forgiving with yourself in this journey, because there might be times where you're not able to do something that's easy for someone else, or you genuinely might not be able to do something, but that doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. I've had anxiety so bad that it's literally caused me to be sick. You know, I've not been able to follow through with things. So I totally get it, and it's awful, but I don't think it should ever stop you from doing something that you love. If you love acting enough that you're willing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, then you should totally do it. Because for me, acting has caused me so many difficult things and so much anxiety, but I love it so much that I can't help but to do it, and it's worth it. So if that's you, then I totally think that you can work through this and make it happen for yourself. So I think that the first thing that we need to think about is what helps anxiety in every other area of life, and for me that is being prepared. I think the more prepared I am, the less anxious I am. So when it comes to anything in the acting industry, whether it be an acting class that you're going to, an audition, a callback, you need to take the time to prepare yourself for it and run through it so much that it kind of loses its terrifying factor. Obviously you're still going to be nervous, obviously you're still going to be anxious, but the more you prepare, the less it loses its terrifying factor. I don't know if that makes sense, but for me, I've realized the more I study my lines, the more I run through the script, the more I run through a fake audition, the more I talk through it with my sister, whoever you have in your life, the better I feel and the less anxious I am about it, because I've done it so many times that it loses its scary. And for me, my anxiety is always way worse in the moments leading up to the event. So for me, I will be so anxious in the car on the way to an audition or to my acting class that I will literally think I'm going to be sick. I will be so anxious I don't think I'm going to make it. The second I'm actually in there and I start doing whatever I'm doing, I feel so much better. So I think that's really important to remember with anxiety, is usually once you're there, you're fine. fine. It's really just the buildup. The first tip I have is to just be uber prepared. Be so prepared for any situation, run through any situation, any scenario, know your lines so well that you literally can't forget them, and also be gentle with yourself and knowing that you're gonna fail sometimes. But in the grand scheme of things, one audition, one tiny thing is not going to make or break your career. You need to put it in perspective and realize that this tiny thing in your life, you will forget in literally months. In months, this thing will just be a tiny thing in your past. Nothing is ever as serious as we make it. Especially when you have anxiety, like the stakes are just so high with everything. What you have to realize is like this is just this little part of your life, this little moment that no matter how that moment goes, you could do your absolute best or you could do your absolute worst, and it's not going to matter. It's still that little part of your life, and it's not going to affect forever for you. It's never going to, even worst case scenario, affect you as much as you think it will. My favorite quote is, worrying about tomorrow's troubles takes away today's peace, and I live by that. I think that's another really important thing to remember, is that worrying now when you're not even in the situation yet is putting yourself through it twice. And I understand that when you have anxiety, it's something you cannot control. Trust me, because people say, just don't worry about it, don't think about it, just do this. You can't shut it off, and I totally get that. But to just remind yourself in your head, even though you're not solving the actual problem, the fear that you're feeling, just to remind yourself, to give your brain comfort that, okay, worrying is not going to take away what's going to happen tomorrow, and whatever is going to happen is going to happen, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. It's going to happen, and even if it's the worst thing that ever happens, it's never as bad in the moment as you make it in your head beforehand. Like, the worst thing in the world could happen, and it's still not going to be as bad as you thought, or probably as bad as when you put yourself through it before it happened. And you're gonna be fine at the end of it. So that's my little spiel of what I always tell myself in my head. Know yourself, know that you're an anxious person, and in any situation, make sure you're uber prepared. You're so prepared for it. Run through it as many times as you can, and you'll be better in the moment. A second thing is I think being in acting classes is the most helpful thing. You can ask to audit a class before you actually join, so you can watch the class and not have to worry about having to participate when you don't know what's happening. Because for me, when I go into a new situation, I'm always nervous when I don't know what to expect. So if you audit a class, you'll watch, you'll have no pressures on yourself, you'll just see, you'll probably still be anxious, but you'll be less anxious because you won't have to participate. You're just gonna watch the class, you're gonna see how everything goes, and then you're gonna sign up for the class, and you're gonna already know what happens in the class, and you're still gonna be anxious, but it's gonna be more bearable. And then you're gonna use tip number one and be uber prepared. You're gonna be the person in there that knows their lines best. You're gonna be the person that's run through every scenario that could possibly happen, and you're still gonna be anxious when you go, but you're gonna be less anxious. And then after that first class, when you go to the second class, you're still gonna be anxious, but you're gonna be less anxious. I still get nervous when I go to acting class, and I've been at the same acting studio for 2 years. I know every single person in my class, I know all my acting coaches, and I love everyone. But I'm nervous every single time. I'm nervous every single time I'm on camera. So just know yourself. Know that you're gonna have those feelings, but that there's things you can do to diminish how strong it's gonna be. And being in classes will make you so much more comfortable in front of the camera. You're still gonna be anxious, but you're gonna be less anxious. The more I'm in classes, the more comfortable I feel on camera, even when I'm put on like a huge set. It's gonna be way more scary to book something and be on a huge set and never have been on camera, or not have weekly been on camera as if you were in a class. That's gonna help you be so prepared that when you are on camera, you can almost just disassociate because you're so anxious, and your body's gonna know the motions and know what to do because you've been training every single week. So I think training is also another important thing, because sometimes with anxiety, you shut down, you disassociate, and there's nothing that you can do about that. It's just something that happens, and I've had that happen many times where I genuinely black out. Like in a lot of emotional scenes that I do, I won't even remember filming them. Like I will have blacked out, and I'm so grateful that I've been training and I've been practicing, because I truly believe that that's the only reason that when I see that scene, I'm actually happy with it, because my body knows in autopilot what to do. Another thing that I like to do before I do an audition, or before I start my acting class, before anything, even just like if you're nervous about going to, I don't know, a date, like anything, I like to close my eyes and I think about every single thing I'm worried about and that's weighing on me, and I just think through it all in my head. Because something about anxiety is, if you don't sit down and you don't run through it and think about it in your head over and over again, it's like gnawing at the back of your head. Like it's just there, and you know it's there, and you haven't thought about it. It's like something you're forgetting that you need to deal with. So I give myself like 5 minutes where I just think through everything And I think about everything I need to think about, and I think about everything I'm worried about, and I think about everything I need to do, just everything that's like gnawing at the back of my head that someone with anxiety deals with. I just think through it all, and I just let it go, and I tell myself this present moment that I'm dealing with is the most important thing. More important than all these other things that I'm worried about. This is the most important thing. So I rethink about everything that I need to do, everything I'm worried about, and I let it go and say, okay, I've thought it all through. Nothing's more important than this present moment, so I can give myself permission to fully focus on this present moment because it is the most important thing. It's like giving your body permission to be fully there, and there's nothing you need to be worried about or thinking about that's more important than where you are right now. And then my acting studio always makes us, we tune into our ears. What do you hear in the room? What can you hear going on? Then what do you smell? How's your body feel? Like, is your body tense somewhere? You know, is there like, do you need to pop your knuckles? Like, just fully check in with all of your senses in your body, and that really grounds you into the present moment. It takes your mind off of what you were thinking about. Another thing you can do is breathing exercises. I have really struggled with these because when I was a kid, my anxiety really showed itself in breathing. I used to feel like I couldn't breathe. I was convinced I had lung cancer. I thought I was dying. Like, my panic attacks were all about like, I feel like I can't breathe, you know, I struggle with breathing. Now it's more of like my heart does weird things. I still have like the breathing issues. But something that a lot of the kids in my class say helps, and my sister does it, is breathing exercises. And it's a good way to kind of ground yourself and keep yourself focused and calm yourself. I hate doing the breathing exercises because it makes me anxious to focus on my breathing. So if you're someone that also struggles with any kind of anxiety that's triggered by breathing, or breathing exercises make it worse, don't do this. But for other people that don't necessarily struggle with that and they just struggle with like the anxious feeling, then I think that these breathing exercises would really help because everyone I know swears by them, and maybe I need to force myself to get comfortable with them, but I'm not there yet. I'm being patient with myself and knowing that I can't deal with that. So anyways, it's breathe in for 2, breathe out for 4, and then breathe in for 3, breathe out for 6, and then breathe in for 4, breathe out for 8. So and you just keep doing that and it calms you. So 2, 3, 4, and then you breathe out for double. So 2 in, 4 out, 3 in, 6 out, 4 in, 8 out. People swear by it. I feel like that kind of did calm me. I don't know, but focusing on my breathing scares me. So if that, you know, scares you, you can also do stuff that kind of like gets you back in your body. My acting coach does this for 2 minutes. Like, after he does an emotional scene to calm down, like, he'll do this, which kind of helps because it gets your mind off of it. And this is better for me than the breathing because the breathing makes me more anxious. So you can kind of choose what works for you, but apparently 2 minutes of this and 4 minutes of the breathing completely calms your system. So try those. To consolidate, my tips are: be uber prepared, get in classes to be experiencing it in a safe environment. The more you can experience what you're scared of but in a safe environment that you can grow to be more comfortable in, and give yourself little moments to break out of your anxiety, the better. So I think classes have really helped manage my anxiety. And then try the breathing or try the body movement and see if that helps. And then try also the grounding that I talked about. I guess it's sort of like meditation where you just give yourself time that's set aside to do all the thinking you need to do so that you can be in the present moment without having to worry about the things in the back of your head. Because you've already dealt with them. You thought about them and you dealt with them, and you've realized the present moment is the most important moment to be in. So I really hope that those tips helped, and I am by no means saying that like my anxiety is gonna be like everyone else's, and I understand that mine is not as severe as most people's, and I'm very lucky and very fortunate, but I definitely think that you should not limit yourself because of your anxiety. And I think there's so many safe ways for you to try and to practice and to grow, because you're not gonna stay the same forever. You're gonna have moments where you're better and moments where you're worse, and it's all just gonna be up and down, and you need to push yourself and do all that you can and just try. I don't think that, you know, having anxiety is gonna stop you from acting. I don't think that. I think that the only thing that's gonna stop you from acting is you. And I understand that some people's anxiety is way worse and they're actually not capable of some things, but I still think that you can act, and I still think that there's ways around it, and I think you need to try all that you can try, and at the end of the day, you're gonna push yourself to get what you want. But I want you to know that we're all here for you, and I support every single one of you, and I can't wait to see you on camera. And anxiety is probably one of the worst things because it's never something that goes away, and it's something that you deal with genuinely 24/7. It's not off and on, it's constant, and it's a way of living. So I'm in no way diminishing what anyone's going through. Like, anxiety has been a huge part of my life and a huge thing that I've always dealt with, and definitely makes acting harder and makes everything in life harder. But anxiety makes everything difficult. So just because it makes acting harder does not make it impossible. And I don't want you to feel like you're any less of a person or any less capable than other people, because I honestly think sometimes anxiety helps me. It helps me be on my A game. It helps me be more prepared. It helps me try harder than everyone else. It helps me to push myself harder than everyone else. It's not as easy as it is for other people, but that means that I show up and show out at every single situation. Like, even in my acting classes, I'm giving it my all because I'm terrified all the time. Like, I'm always anxious and I always feel like it's life or death when it's not really that serious. But anxiety pushes you to try your absolute hardest 24/7. But I really hope this helped, and I get it. I really get it, and I know that some people deal with it way worse than me, so I'm always here for you if you want to talk or if you have any more questions or anything like that. But I truly believe in every single one of you, and I think that you watching this video and doing the work is just amazing, and it shows your work ethic, and it's putting you ahead of everyone else, because the people that make it in this industry are the people that work the hardest and research and know themselves and learn what works for them. So just because these things work for me doesn't mean that they're gonna work for you, but some of it might. So take what works that I do, you know, live through this whole thing like the way I did and learn what works for you. And then maybe share your tips so it helps other people. But you're gonna need to just dive head in, realize that you're gonna be anxious and you're gonna deal with anxiety, but you love it enough that it's worth it. And then you're gonna learn things that help you, and as time goes on, it's gonna get easier. It will get easier because it gets less scary because you've experienced more and you've experienced more and more and more. But I really hope that helped, and I hope you can use some of these tips. But I love and appreciate every single one of you, and I'll see you in the next one.